Jesson. Matt recently went on a trip to Iceland with his wife Cassie. You will recognize Cassie from one of the photos in the presentation. She was a former PKN presenter, so she gets a little shout out in this presentation. So welcome Matt, please.
Thank you. And it'll be kind of like Where's Waldo for Cassie, if you know her. Anyway, earlier this year, a volcano called Grimsvötn erupted, and I would not really remember that other than the fact that a few days later I was supposed to leave for Iceland, where this volcano was erupting. Luckily, this didn't derail the trip. We got there just fine, and just a week later, we were able to see why they call it the land of fire and ice. You can see these icebergs. This is a place called Jökulsárlón. It's amazing, and the icebergs drift out to sea. A lot of them are still covered with black volcanic ash, as you can see in the background. Fire and ice. Now, when we told people that we were going to Iceland or that we had recently been there, most people said, "Iceland, cool. Why?" You heard about that volcano, right? Yeah. Well, honestly, we really just wanted to meet New York. In all seriousness, the natural beauty of Iceland is what drew us there. They have a really amazing landscape that you just can't see anywhere else. It's totally unique. Waterfalls everywhere. So many waterfalls that, honestly, you get kind of sick of them after a while. Well, luckily, our first day, we weren't so jaded about waterfalls, and we were able to enjoy it. Dolsfoss, what you see here, is a huge waterfall, and thanks to the combination of the midnight sun and jet lag, we went and saw it at 4 o'clock in the morning. And we had all to ourselves. It was like having the Grand Canyon to yourself. It was amazing. It was cold. It's easy to think of Iceland as kind of this collection, it's like menagerie of geological novelties. They've got geysers, they've got volcanoes and glaciers and obviously waterfalls. And they owe a lot of that to the fact that Iceland is situated on the rift between 2 continental plates. And you can actually see this rift and walk down it in their national park called Thingvellir, which it's a really, really amazing place, great hiking, and it also happens to be the site of what they call the world's first parliament, which was founded over 1,000 years ago. The history of Iceland, I got really interested in and did a lot of reading before the trip, because I guess I'm a nerd, but it's really fascinating, and sometimes a little brutal. You might have heard of the sagas, not the Twilight kind, the real sagas. They're actually historical documents mixed with mythology, and they detail the settling of Iceland. I read a couple of them before the trip. My favorite was of this kind of founding father figure of Iceland named Skallagrimsson, who was a warrior and a poet, and by all accounts, just an ugly and terrifying person. There's a great story in the saga where Ed and his men are traveling, and they decide to stop at this farmhouse for rest. And the farmer welcomes them, and he says, "Hey, I'm really sorry, you guys can stay here, but I don't have any beer." And it turns out he did have beer. He was hiding it from them. They found it. They drank all of it. Ed was really mad, and he threw the guy up against the wall and vomited in his face. Just to show him. So the moral of the story is, don't hide beer from a Viking. But today's Icelanders are really nice. They're not brutal and disgusting. We hardly got vomited on at all. But you can see some of the toughness that came through their ancestry. Their world is very frontier-like in a lot of ways, especially in the more remote parts. There aren't warning signs. There aren't guardrails. The barriers there are for sheep, not people. You're welcome to move around as you want. The architecture in the remote areas, which is most of Iceland, is pretty utilitarian. We joked that this hotel of ours looked like the conjugal visit trailer at a prison. Not that we know. But the capital city, Reykjavik, is very different. It's a very modern city, very vibrant, wonderful museums, lots of cool stuff to do. My favorite of which was the Runter, which is their kind of traditional bar crawl. And it starts essentially at midnight because of the midnight sun, and I guess the Viking craziness hasn't quite worked itself out yet. But so we went out at about 10 o'clock at night, and it seemed like, on Saturday night, and it seemed like the town was just dead. But we did find one place, because people were still asleep or something, I don't know. We did find one place that was kind of hopping. It was a Danish bar, and where's Waldo? There she is. It just happened that Denmark had just beat Iceland in a soccer match in Reykjavik, and this was a Danish bar. And it was also sing-along night. So we come into this place, and it's filled with drunk Danes belting out Sweet Home Alabama in English. Like, most people there spoke very good English, and we love you too, Iceland. And that's a good thing, because the Icelandic language is impossible. The Icelanders don't even know how to speak it. It's ancient, and they don't really understand it. And I had this experience where I was calling somebody on the phone to get directions, and I had a map, and I'm looking at a street sign and say, I'm on Alfheimer. Is that close to you? That's the name of the street, Alfheimer. And I get, Alfheimer? I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, Alfheimer, do you mean Alzheimer? Anyway, it was a real adventure for me and Cassie, especially, because it was the first time we actually had ever left the United States. Didn't even have a passport before that. And our wonderful friends Dan and Allison, they're in the back, suggested this trip to us, and we said, yeah, what the heck? And I'm really glad we did. It really kind of got us outside of the box. So I'm just going to leave you with a quick recommendation that if you want to, if you've got the means and the time, pick someplace kind of weird, beautiful, pick someplace that you never go, and just try it out. Thank you.